Hello, and welcome to another lesson on Advanced Project Management. This lesson on Advanced Project Management Fundamentals will cover stakeholder identification and analysis. The Identify Stakeholders process involves regularly identifying project stakeholders and analyzing and documenting relevant information about their interests, involvement, interdependencies, influence, and potential impact on the project's success. The primary benefit of this process is that it helps the project team determine the appropriate level of engagement for each stakeholder or stakeholder group. This process is carried out as needed throughout the project's duration and is crucial for success. Typically, this process is initiated either before or concurrently with the development and approval of the project charter. It is repeated as required, but should also be conducted at the outset of each project phase and when significant changes occur within the project or the organization. During each repetition of the identification process, the project management plan components and project documents should be consulted to identify pertinent project stakeholders. Identifying stakeholders begins with various inputs at the project's outset and continues throughout its duration. Some of these components are: the project charter identifies the key stakeholders and may contain information regarding their responsibilities. The business case identifies the project objectives and establishes an initial list of stakeholders affected by the project. The benefits management plan outlines the anticipated approach for realizing the benefits outlined in the business case. Project documents that can be considered as inputs for this process encompass the following: change log may introduce new stakeholders or alter the nature of an existing stakeholder's relationship with the project. Issue log records issues that may introduce new stakeholders to the project or modify existing stakeholders' participation level. Requirements documentation can provide information about potential stakeholders. The stakeholders' identification process can also be influenced by the enterprise's environmental factors, such as organizational culture, political climate, and governance framework. This section will explore these tools and techniques, shedding light on the expertise, data gathering, data analysis, data representation, and meetings involved in the stakeholder identification process. Expertise should be sought from individuals or groups with specialized knowledge or training in various areas, including understanding the organization's politics and power structures, knowledge of the organizational environment and culture, as well as that of other affected organizations, including customers and the broader environment, knowledge of the industry or the type of project deliverable, and knowledge of individual team member contributions and expertise. Various data gathering techniques may be employed in this process, including questionnaires and surveys, one-on-one reviews, focus group sessions, or other mass data collection approaches. Brainstorming, a general data gathering and creativity technique that gathers input from groups such as team members or subject matter experts. Brainwriting, a refinement of brainstorming that allows individual participants time to consider questions individually before a group creativity session is held. Information can be collected in face-to-face groups or using technology-supported virtual environments. Data analysis techniques that can be applied in this process include: stakeholder analysis results in a list of stakeholders and relevant information such as their positions in the organization, roles in the project, interests, rights, ownership, knowledge, contribution, and attitudes. Document analysis involves assessing available project documentation and lessons learned from previous projects to identify stakeholders and supporting information. One data representation technique that may be employed in this process is stakeholder mapping representation, which involves categorizing stakeholders using various methods to facilitate relationship building. Common methods include power interest grid, power influence grid, or impact influence grid. These techniques group stakeholders based on their level of authority, power, interest in the project's outcomes, interest, ability to influence project outcomes, influence, or ability to affect changes in the project's planning or execution. Salience model describes stakeholder classes based on power, urgency, and legitimacy assessments. It can help determine the relative importance of identified stakeholders. Meetings are instrumental in understanding significant project stakeholders and can take the form of facilitation workshops, small group guided discussions, and virtual groups using electronic or social media technologies for idea sharing and data analysis. The results of the stakeholder identification process, which encompass the stakeholder register, change requests, and revisions to project management documents, hold a crucial significance in guiding the project's path and accommodating shifts in stakeholder dynamics. The primary output of the Identify Stakeholders process is the Stakeholder Register, which comprises essential information about identified stakeholders. This information includes identification details, name, organizational role, location, contact information, and project role. Assessment information, key requirements, expectations, potential influence on project outcomes, and the project lifecycle phase where the stakeholder is most impacted. Stakeholder classification, internal-external, impact influence power interest, upward downward outward sideward, or any other classification model selected by the project manager. Change requests are only sometimes generated during the initial phase of identifying stakeholders. However, as stakeholder identification continues throughout the project, discovering new stakeholders or additional information about existing stakeholders may necessitate change requests. The Perform Integrated Change Control process reviews and resolves these change requests. While identifying stakeholders at the project's outset usually does not prompt immediate updates to the project management plan, changes are processed through the organization's change control procedure via a change request as the project progresses. Components of the project management plan that may require change requests include a requirements management plan, communications management plan, risk management plan, and stakeholder engagement plan. Project documents that may be revised due to the execution of this process are the assumption log, issue log, and risk register. This is the end of this segment of our lesson. In the next segment, we shall be discussing stakeholder engagement strategies. This course is presented to you by South Europe College. Thank you for listening, and see you on our segment.